I'm Mills. Let me share a little about how I got here. I started my financial journey fall of 2014 when I found myself with only $1.50 to my name. So clearly, I understand the frustration around money mismanagement, struggling with where to start, and the courage it takes to take ownership of your finances. Now I'm a financial coach, speaker, author, and the founder and owner of Mills Knows Bills, where I have the opportunity to teach individuals and businesses how to manage and master their money within 90 days. On this podcast, I will teach you how to stop living paycheck to paycheck, how to pay off your debt twice as fast, and how to reach your financial goals. This podcast is meant to make managing your finances accessible. So if you find that your finances are controlling you, or you simply have no idea where to start, this is the place for you. Click the subscribe button and turn on your notifications to make sure you don't miss out on any new content. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's dive into today's topic. Today we're actually going to be launching a new mini-series, and this is going to be different from typical content that we normally put out because it's going to be a little bit more of storytelling rather than me just teaching you something new. So although it's going to be more of a story, you're still going to learn something along the way, I promise. I actually find that stories sometimes are better ways of learning, so I'm hoping that is something that helps and rings true with you as well. The series that we're going to be launching today was actually alluded to in last week's episode. So if you missed out on that, go back, check it out, see what we might be kickstarting today. But I'm just going to jump right in and let y'all know that we're going to be talking about how Joe and I are able to purchase a home that's worth more than $615,000 at the ages of 28 and 26 respectively, which honestly is something that I never thought that we were going to be able to do at our ages. I thought maybe another 10 years from now, maybe. But as you listen and or watch this series, let me know if you have any specific questions that you'd like answered. I'll actually be doing a special episode at the end with all of the questions asked. So if you have something you want to know, whether it's financial related or not, send your questions to me directly at mills@millsknowsbills.com. With that said, sit back and relax because I really think you're going to enjoy this mini series. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I want to kick off this first episode with saying luck is when preparation meets opportunity. This is a quote that was shared with me about, 8 years ago now, something like that. And it really struck a chord with me because I always found that other people were so much luckier than I was, especially when it came to finances. And then I realized that once this quote was shared with me, they weren't lucky, they were prepared. They were always working towards whatever it is that they had wanted. And then they striked when the opportunity presented itself. They didn't wait. They mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever they needed to do, prepared, and then they took that step. So as you're listening to this story, I get asked this question often now, oh, you're so lucky, Mills. Joe and I aren't lucky. We're blessed 100%, but we also identify when the opportunities present themselves, and we're not afraid to pull the trigger when it is time for us to do so. And we're always preparing for the next thing. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's set the tone of where this story is going to begin. Let's go back to when Joe and I first got married. We got married December of 2017. I was 21, Joe 23. And when we first got married, we moved into a 750 square foot apartment in Tampa for about $1,300 a month. And this was stretching it for our budget at the time. But that $1,300 a month, I think I actually did the math. It worked out to be 26, almost 27% of our household after-tax income. But we chose that apartment because it was a little bit closer to work. It had a great location. It was safe, especially because Joe was traveling all the time and I was living by myself 90% of it. So we moved into this apartment. It was snug. We made lots of great memories there. But we also wanted to make sure that we weren't overstretched in our budget, because I actually didn't start making consistent income until our 4th or 5th month of marriage. You see, I had started out as a financial advisor. I had just moved from Orlando to Tampa after I graduated college, and quickly found that I didn't love the financial advising part of it. And if y'all want to know about that, we can talk about that another day, another episode. Ask your questions. Maybe that's something we talk about. But I realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I didn't really make any money while I was there doing that, because it's commission-based and it takes months for commission to come in sometimes. And so when I left that industry, I didn't have a job or a backup plan right away. It wasn't until I actually became a mortgage processor a few months later that I started getting a fixed salary. But again, that took time for it to come in. So during those first 4 or 5 months, we were really just living off of Joe's income, and decided that we were going to live that way even when I did start making money, and just save what I started earning at that point when I did start making money. Because if we were able to have all of our mandatory expenses and being able to pay down debt and all of that based off of his income, my income was just the gravy on top and was going to help us reach our financial goals a little bit faster. So when we did get married, we knew that we didn't want to rent forever. We knew that we wanted to start working towards buying a condo or a townhome, because personally with our relationship, we've always talked about how we didn't just want our money going towards a liability all the time, right? And I've said this 100 times, I'll say it 100 times more. Buying a primary residence is more of mitigating a liability than it is buying an asset, although it can be buying an asset, right? But you still need to pay to live either way. So our idea was, let's take some of those factors that are out of our control, being renters, like increased rent, being able to change the property to be what we want, those types of things, and let's put those in our control. So that way we can start limiting that liability as much as possible. When I started working in mortgages, I was a processor, which meant I was the person who had to know a lot about the different loan programs. I was in between the loan officer and the underwriter, so I got to see both the sales and the approval or denial process. But really, let's be honest, I hated working as a mortgage processor, but I learned a ton. So much about the house buying process, all the different types of loan programs, credit, debt, tax statements. I mean, 50% at least of what I teach as a financial coach came from my experience as a mortgage processor. And I'm so grateful that I was kind of shoved in that direction at the time. But we knew that as I started getting this information from the lending side, that we were going to be able to maybe buy a home a year earlier than we were expecting to, because I thought the process was a lot more complicated than it actually is. So by the time October 2018 came around, we decided to start looking to buy, since our lease ended the end of December 2018. So again, we're still in our first year of marriage. We weren't expecting to purchase a home until maybe our second year of marriage sometime. But we thought, you know what? There's no harm in just looking, right? Let's just get a feel for what that process looks like. We had a little less than $15,000 to work with, and that was all included. We're talking closing, renovations, down payment, all of that. And most of that $15,000 actually came from my savings from when I was working various internships in college. I had just left that aside and saved it for a while. And then, of course, as I started making the consistent income as a mortgage processor, we started saving a little bit more of my money as well. Knowing that we had $15K to work with, that made our max purchase price about $200,000 for the condo or townhome. We based that off of the monthly payments that the mortgage was estimated to be, our budget, right? Just because we could purchase a home that was $250,000 or whatever it may be, we knew that we wanted to be around $200,000 or less. Also, just because the fact it was our first purchase, we didn't want to overextend ourselves. We were so used to paying $1,300 a month. I was paying $500 a month in rent before Joe and I got married because I had 2 other roommates in college. This was just new, uncharted territory for us. And even though we knew $200K was our max budget, we, after discussing it, really felt more comfortable around $185,000 as a purchase price. So we knew our budget, we knew the purchase price, and here's what else we knew we wanted in terms of a property. And we gathered this information by talking with those who own real estate, not just primary residences, but also investment properties, learning through me being a mortgage processor, doing lots of reading and research. We gathered tons of information. And we decided that the 3 things that we wanted to focus on beyond just the financial part of it was we wanted it in a great location. We wanted a slightly larger space than what we were currently living in because 750 square feet for 2 people was a little snug for us. And we also wanted something that was not a complete dump. We were willing to do some renovations and fix up the place a little bit, but we didn't want to go in there and have to completely gut the property. That was just too overwhelming for us, especially because both of us were working full-time. Joe was traveling full-time as well. So a lot of it was going to go on me. I didn't have the capacity for a lot of it. Let's just be honest. I was a completely different person back then. But those were our 3 things: location, a little bit bigger, and not a complete dump. For those of you following our podcast, thank you. When we first decided to create a podcast a few months ago, it seemed daunting to say the least. Then we discovered Social Chameleon. They helped us get launched, created our trailer, edit our intros and outros and the audio for each episode, created the cover art for the show, write our episode show notes, and even do all of the distribution. This has allowed us to make the show available to you on the most popular podcast apps. So this is just a quick shout out to say thanks to Social Chameleon. Mills Knows Bills can focus on what we do and they handle the rest. With Social Chameleon, it's podcasting done for you. Feel free to check them out at socialchameleon.us. After weeks, remember we started looking about October 2018, after weeks and what seemed like hundreds of homes of searching, we finally found what we were looking for. There was a townhome that was right around the corner from us, from where we were already renting. It had a great location, 2.5, lots of potential. And the reason why it took us weeks to find it was because it was actually originally listed at about $205,000 in September of 2018. It had just gone on the market. And that 205 was, like we said, outside of our budget. And it wasn't until the price dropped about mid-October 2018 down to 185, I believe it was, that it was right around our perfect price point. So we took a look at it. As I said, the price had just dropped. It had been dropping for a while. It had ended up dropping like $20K in just the span of a couple months. So we knew that the seller was motivated to get rid of the property. So we figured we'd come in a little bit lower. I think we offered 180, and after negotiating, we ended up settling on a purchase price of $182,500 with a $2,500 seller credit for us at closing. For those of you who don't know what a seller credit is, it's money that the seller provides at the closing table to help lower our cash to close by whatever amount is already agreed upon. So let's go over some of the details. Let's talk about what we liked about the property. Great location. For those of you that are familiar with South Tampa, there is a little pocket just south of Gandy along Manhattan. We were just in that area, and that area was booming. It was not far from the MacDill Air Force Base. There's always people who need to live in that area. It's close to a lot of things. Within spitting distance of a Publix, a farmer's market, a Walmart, different types of quick fast food restaurants, some other restaurants as well. But there was a lot of things in the area, not to mention you had access to a lot of different roads to get to where you wanted to be. So where we were, you could take the expressway to downtown Tampa and get to downtown Tampa within 15 to 20 minutes. You could go north to the other hub on West Shore and get there within 15 to 20 minutes. We were also about 20 minutes from the working area around West Shore. So really, the location was awesome because you were 15 to 20 minutes from an urban area and all things that you wanted with work, restaurants. Airport wasn't even that far either, shopping, all of that. But you were far enough removed from it to where you didn't get the noise or the hustle and bustle of it. The location also had more space for us, in addition to if at one point we wanted to rent out the property, it would rent better to tenants rather than having a 1-bedroom place. It would be 2 bedrooms, which means we could either have each room rented out or maybe rent to a smaller family or other couple. We knew we were going to move at one point, but we weren't really sure when. So we wanted that option in our future. Some of the other details, honestly, that townhome was ugly. I'm talking like dark paint everywhere, rotting balconies, overhangs, like the wood of them. The original 2005 carpet was everywhere, and you could tell it was the original, and there was pets in there. It was nasty. The kitchen was just awful, especially the cupboards. They were just dark, that dark brown from the early 2005s. Disgusting master shower. We're talking like closed in with the wall coming down from the ceiling. It was dark tile in there. There must have been some type of unknown breed of mold growing in there. It was nasty. And there wasn't actually any mold, but it was gross. There was no way I was going to go in there, even with flip-flops on, okay? There was a lot of dark breaking blinds throughout the townhome. So all of the windows were just getting darkened by the dark wood, but they were half broke. It was all cosmetic things, but it was ugly and it needed a little bit of love, if you know what I mean. But what we did love about the property was the fact that it had a lot of natural light. I believe the townhome, if I remember correctly, faced east. So we'd have the sunrise through the main front of the house and then the sunset in the back of the house. And the back of the house on the second floor, there was a balcony which opened up to a beautiful magnolia tree. There was the ability for us to make it our own because it was a lot of cosmetics. It turned away a lot of other buyers, but we weren't afraid of any of it because it wasn't too cost intensive. And lastly, we loved the fact that it was within our budget. So even though we might not have been able to cross everything off of our list like we wanted to immediately, we were able to get a good portion of it done and live there and still feel comfortable financially. So in early of November 2019, we closed on our first home purchase. I believe it was November 2nd. Don't quote me on that, but that day sticks out to me for whatever reason. Our total cash to close, including our earnest money deposit or a portion of our down payment, was just under $13,000. We bought down our PMI at closing since we only put 5% down. And by buying off our PMI at closing, it actually lowered our monthly payment. Again, we wanted to be cash flow forward. And the break even was about 3 years. So if we held the property for 3 years or more, it saved us money. If we sold the property under 3 years of owning it, we were going to lose money on paying off that PMI upfront. Right away, we put $10,000 into the property to start improving it. We actually borrowed this $10,000 from my parents. We were blessed enough to be able to get that from them. And we had about a 1-year repayment term. And with this $10,000, we focused on the necessities for move-in. We repainted the entire interior of the home. We removed all of that nasty carpet and replaced it with wood-looking tile. We renovated the entire staircase, 36 or 37 stairs. My husband comments on it to this day because we took off the tread. We put new risers. We put retread. We painted the risers, stained the retread, make it look beautiful and new. We renovated the master shower by actually taking off that wall that was closing in the shower. We opened it up and we took out all of that nasty tile and replaced it with brand new marble looking tile. We resurfaced the kitchen and bathroom cupboards with we stripped down the varnish on it, repainted it, resurfaced, sealed it, just to give them a facelift. And those few things that we did, completely changed the look of the home. It felt entirely new. It felt cleaner. It felt not necessarily like a new build, but it was definitely refreshing walking into that home at that point. We did pretty much everything ourselves to save money, and it also allowed us to learn a lot along the way as well. We learned about negotiating with different contractors and just buying a home in general, negotiating with the seller. We also learned about the importance of finding quality workers, what is worth our time to renovate ourselves versus what's not worth our time, how to choose tile and paint and other things, and having the perspective of durability and something being long lasting, maybe something that's going to stay timeless a little bit longer than things that are trendy. We also learned a lot about what actually goes into a renovation budget. There's a lot that you don't see. Tile removal is expensive. Also, you don't just lay the tile down. There's hardy backer boards and other things like that go underneath. And I know I'm butchering it. For those of you that are really savvy with house renovations, don't come for me with some of the terms. But the bottom line is there's a lot that you don't know about renovations until you actually get started because you don't see them. But lastly, we learned that we got a lot of pride out of doing it ourselves. We felt like we had earned it a little bit more. We were proud of everything that we had built, not only financially, but physically in this property. It was a really cool experience. And although we put that initial $10K into the property up front, throughout the years of us owning that property, we put probably an additional 10 to 12 grand into it. We replaced things like the AC, some of the sinks. We replaced all of the blinds at one point. Little things here and there that added up. But the point is, we continued to maintain the property so that way it could give us what we wanted out of it. But we'll talk about that later on. By December of 2018, we were ready to move in. We actually celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary in that townhome. And I remember it was a really humble first year anniversary. We cooked at home. We got a little cake and we celebrated. And I remember there's a photo of us somewhere where we're sitting down at our kitchen table and there's boxes everywhere still because we weren't 100% unpacked. But we were happy. We sat down and we reflected on all that we were able to do. We felt grateful. We were still scared because it was a completely new process, but we were really more excited for what it meant for our future. We knew that although we couldn't see 5 years into the future, we knew that that was a pivotal point in our financial journey at that time and our relationship with all of the communication that came along with it. To give you guys some of the extra numbers, we ended up paying about $1,700 a month for our mortgage and HOA fees, but we would rather pay $1,700 for a mortgage than $1,300 in rent. At that point, I was starting to earn a little bit more money. Joe had actually just gotten a little bit of a raise, so the $1,700 a month, it wasn't outside the scope of what we felt comfortable with, which is why I said earlier we knew $200K of a purchase price was our absolute max. By having this mortgage payment, it allowed us to build equity. It allowed us to avoid increased rental costs. We were able to have a pet for the first time ever. And we had a place that we could call home. And that was really important to us. Now, was everything perfect? No, abso-freaking-lutely not. But we knew that we were onto something. And like I said earlier, although we couldn't see too far into the future, we couldn't wait to see what was right around the corner for us. We knew that this was going to be something that was going to help us in the long run, which, as I'm sure you can guess, based off of this mini series, it definitely was something that helped. But little did we know that our lives would be flipped upside down just 3 months later after moving in. If you've enjoyed this series so far, it would mean so much to me if you took the time to rate, follow, subscribe, review on whatever platform you're listening to this to. podcast, YouTube, doesn't matter, so that way more people can reach financial freedom. I'm not just giving this information for fun. I really do want to help as many people as possible, although I do enjoy the occasional geek out. But feel free to also follow us on your favorite social platforms. You can get the links to wherever we are down below in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next week so you can get the scoop on the next part of the story. Thank you so much for listening and allowing me to be part of your financial journey. As a thank you for tuning in, I'm offering you first access to special tools and information. Simply subscribe to my newsletter found on my website at millsknowsbills.com, where you can find my free budget setting tool, workshops, and so much more. You can also connect with me on social. I have Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. All links are available in the show notes. I appreciate you tuning in and spreading the love. Thank you for all the positive comments on social, and you know I love seeing your 5-star reviews as well. Always remember, mo money, no problems. I'll see you next time.